Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Peter Sands of the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria, and our esteemed panel.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Peter Sands. I'm the Executive Director of the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria. For those of you who don't know the Global Fund was created 20 years ago to fight what were then the three biggest infectious disease killers in the world. Over the last 20 years, we've deployed about $55 billion and saved over 50 million lives. Up to 2019, we had made massive progress against the three diseases, cutting the combined death rate across them by over half. But with COVID-19, we have been set back. In fact, the Global Fund became very involved in the global response to COVID-19 because we saw that it was threatening exactly the same people and it was derailing the fight against HIV, TB, and malaria. And over the last couple of years, we've deployed over $4.4 billion on top of what we deploy for HIV, TB, and malaria, making the Global Fund the largest source of financial support to low and middle income countries for all the non-vaccine components of the COVID-19 response. Now, the thing that makes the Global Fund work is that it is a unique partnership. There is no other multilateral that is quite as diverse in the combination of civil society, affected communities, government, technical partners, and crucially, the private sector. And we have a wide array of different types of private sector partners that engage with the Global Fund in different forms and mechanisms. And I'm really thrilled to have on stage with me today on this panel three of our greatest partners. I have Alison Moore, CEO of Comic Relief US, Robbie Brozin, founder of Nando's, Peri Peri Chicken, and Goodbye Malaria, and Helen McDowell, Head of Government Affairs and Global Public Health at Vive Healthcare. And these are all organizations, and in fact, all individuals who have shown extraordinary leadership in global health and in the fight against these diseases. Alison, can I start with you?
Yes.
Comic Relief US. Tell us why Comic Relief US, what's the logic of being involved with the Global Fund?
So we have a longstanding commitment to supporting health, and particularly for health of the children and their families. And we all know today that the health challenges that we face are vast and complex. And that really requires new and innovative solutions at scale. It is daunting work. We feel that many days, every day in our work, but we don't think it's insurmountable. And in fact, the thing that makes it less insurmountable, frankly, is partnership. It is the crucial ingredient. It is the thing that gives our work sustenance, is having the partnership far and wide. So at Comic Relief, we are a nonprofit. We are fundraisers and grant makers, and we deeply rely on partnerships to be able to address all the challenges that we seek to solve in our breaking the cycle of intergenerational poverty. So partnerships are crucial for both sides of our work, both on the fundraising side and on the grant making side. We know we need a diverse sector of partners at the table with us to be able to innovate, to be able to scale, and frankly, to have us operate at the pace required to keep up with the pace of the need. And that pace is not slowing down anytime soon. And in fact, that pace requires private sector partnership. For us, private sector partners and private sector in general is the bar with which we hope to operate. We know we need to be nimble. We know we need to move faster. And frankly, we not only kind of use that as inspiration, but we also need the financial support, as does the Global Fund. So on our fundraising side, we raise money to support the Global Fund and other organizations, and we build, through brands and partners in commercial sector, ways to engage and delight audiences and do that at scale. It's ways to get them involved in a campaign and get them operating and get them to actually take action, like our Red Nose Day campaign. But we also need long-term operational investments in our ability to scale, to grow more campaigns, to grow audiences, to find those dollars to actually do that good work. When we raise those dollars, we are an intermediary, so we grant out to large organizations like the Global Fund, but also small, medium, and even very tiny organizations, all of whom kind of work towards our goal of ending intergenerational poverty across 4 sectors: health, empowerment, safety, and education. And particularly in health, and particularly with the Global Fund, we know that private sector investment is crucial because fighting disease, and creating equitable access to healthcare, and of course, preventing, as Peter said, future pandemics is going to need private sector support. And so through this unique approach, many people at the table, many partners at the table, fundraising, grant making, all together with the North Star of intergenerational poverty, we are able to, over the past 7 years, raise $380 million here in the US and ensure that 30 million children have more equitable access to healthcare and healthy lives in the US and abroad. And this is why your work is so fundamental and foundational to us.
Fantastic. And where do we go from here?
Well, I think we take the wind at our sails. Since 2015, we've contributed $38 million to the Global Fund.
38 million.
And that's in deep partnership with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And together we know that we can work on an equitable future for children through health. But it's with that spirit and with this sort of support of your work that in this year's 7th replenishment, we contributed $10 million in that pledge to your work at the Global Fund, and we were generously matched by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to make it now $30 million, which is very exciting. I will say, and you've mentioned this several times, for the private sector, the US government is actually matching private sector pledges. So the $10 million became $30 million, and it is now $45 million. And that's an amazing backing by the US government. And you say you're a numbers guy. I know you are. I'm not really. I'm not a math girl, but I will tell you 10, 30 to 45, that's the trajectory and the direction of travel that we're looking for. And we couldn't be more pleased to support your organization and in the good work you're doing together with us.
Alison definitely deserves a clap for $45 million.
I'll clap to that too.
And just to provide a little bit of context to this, tomorrow in this city, President Biden will be hosting what Alison mentioned, which is the 7th replenishment of the Global Fund. The Global Fund works on a 3-year funding cycle, and tomorrow we're looking to raise $18 billion US, which will be, when we succeed,
yes.
Which will be the largest ever fundraising for global health. And a lot of it is public sector money, but the private sector contributes a very significant amount as well. And as Alison said, the way the US pledge is structured is it's a 1 for 2. So the US will put in $1 for every $2 that others put in for a sum up to $6 billion US. So a massive statement of support from the United States. Mm-hmm. Robbie, in addition...
All those billions.
Yeah, all those billions. But when it comes down to it, it's all about what happens with communities and people in some of the most impoverished and marginalized communities in the world. Now, you've been working with us as a partner on malaria in Mozambique. Tell us a bit more, and tell us why you're doing it. You run a restaurant chain.
Run a restaurant chain. I mean, but our delicious peri-peri chicken has, peri-peri that comes from Mozambique. So our provenance of our product is the chili farmers that grow our product. And those chili farmers have been ravaged by malaria. So we got involved about 10 years ago, and we just really wanted to protect our farmers. And, part of our DNA of our brand is changing lives. And so, we also don't want to stand by and just watch things happen. We actually want to get our hands dirty and get stuck in. And so one of the things we do is we encourage all our, what we call Nandokas, people that work for Nando's, to actually come and engage on the ground in Mozambique and come and do some indoor residual spraying. So it's part of our DNA, it's part of purpose, it's part of impact and being close to the ground. And I live in Johannesburg, so very close to Maputo, it's a 45-minute flight. We can really see real impact on the ground, and that kind of, programmatic impact, being close to the ground is so important.
One of the things, Robbie, I think sometimes people find it difficult to get their heads around is quite what difference it makes to take a community, to lift malaria out of a community?
It's huge. I mean, at so many different levels. You know, it's really about the poverty and poverty elimination or alleviation. And from our farmers' perspective, you know, a lot of the farmers sometimes have 6 kids, knowing that 2 are going to die from malaria. And so the minute you can give a protection, that there's a comfort zone, that you don't, you know, people can actually have less kids, you know, and also have more money to go around, because half the kids, if they don't die, you know, can be stinted. So it's an incredible impact on the poor in Mozambique. And
so where do we go from here?
so we are pledging. I said I just got to get the numbers right because of the billions and the millions.
You're not a math major either.
And also we're used to transacting in rand, so we can. But we're transacting $5.5 million.
Right.
Which is incredible. Sherwin and Goodbye Malaria and Tim, the Goodbye Malaria team, and Bill and Melinda Gates are putting in 14 million. So it's 19.5 million for Goodbye Malaria, which is, you know, for us a fantastic amount. But I also want to say this, Peter, and I'm really not blowing smoke, but it's our relationship with the Global Fund on the ground in market that's been the most incredible relationship for us. When we first started with the Global Fund, I was very skeptical about the Global Fund. I was like, you know, do we need this big corporate coming and getting involved? Let's just do the shit on the ground and get stuck in and make a difference. And when we first met the Global Fund, I was like very skeptical. And I want to thank you for your leadership and for your kind of the efficiency of the team. We've got an incredible team. And I think it's, you know, it really is about a partnership that has impact, because we can't do it on our own. It's bloody lonely out in the fields in Mozambique for ourselves. And so the more people we've brought on, we've brought Vodacom as partners as well. But just having you in the back, knowing you've got our backs on and helping us, I just want to thank you. We couldn't have done it on our own, I can tell you right now. And we've impacted 3.5 million people are protected now. We started with 9 years ago, and now 3.5 million people. And we employ, I think it's 3,000 people, mainly women, as spray operators. So incredible. I mean, it's a brilliant one. Story. Honestly, I'm just so proud of Sherwin and the GBM team. I really don't do much.
It's a brilliant story. I'm sure you do a lot. Helen, can I turn to you? Vive Healthcare is a company that is incredibly involved in the fight against infectious diseases. But talk to me a bit about the challenges you see and where you see the opportunities, and particularly in relationship with the Global Fund.
Thanks, Peter, and I'm delighted to be here today, not just on behalf of Vive Healthcare, a global pharmaceutical company that's 100% focused on HIV, but also to represent GSK, our majority shareholder, who has a huge and long history in the fight against infectious diseases. Innovative science is our bread and butter. And so the tools that we have developed over the years have been critical in the fight against HIV, TB, and malaria. But as we all know, we're not done. And so earlier this year, both GSK and Vive committed to spend £1 billion over the next decade in continuing to invest in innovative research for medicines and vaccines to disrupt and see the end of these 3 diseases, which I'm sure is something that obviously we all want to see and is hugely important for the Global Fund. Obviously, what we need to do today is invest in getting the innovations that we have now to the people who benefit most from them. And what we believe is really critical at this point in time is focus, a steadfast, relentless focus on the goals that we've set to make sure that we achieve those goals of 2030 of eradicating the 3 diseases. Disruption to treatment and programs that we've seen through COVID and unfortunately through conflict are hampering and distracting, but we cannot let them distract us. So that is why we feel it's really important to make sure that not only do we work with the Global Fund on those 3 diseases, but we support the work that the Global Fund is extremely well placed to deliver and support on those other epidemics and pandemics that may come in the background that need to be managed so they don't distract us from HIV, TB, and malaria. Which is why I'm delighted to make a pledge today on behalf of Vive and GSK of £2 million to the Global Fund's Emergency Fund to support continuous care and treatment around HIV and TB for people in Ukraine.
We haven't even, this is late breaking news, so we haven't even worked out all these matching elements to it. That's fantastic. Can I just ask you one question? I mean, there's been a lot of focus on innovation, but also one of the things we've seen, particularly in the COVID response, is it's all very well to have a new tool. How do you actually get it to the people that need it?
That is the million-dollar question. And I think, to me, the number one thing is there's two pieces: partnerships, multi-sector partnerships, and communities. So with partnerships, I think we've seen over the last decades, in fact, how important they are, and the different partnerships you need through research and development, through getting a product to market, and then making sure that the people who benefit need it, can access it in the most remote places. Perfect example, GSK has recently had approved the first vaccine for malaria. That's been decades in the making. But now, through partnerships, through research, and then now with the Global Fund and Gavi, next year we will start to see that vaccine have benefit for children who are the most at risk and vulnerable to malaria. The other piece is communities. We saw through COVID, and to be honest, in HIV, we've known for many, many years how critical the HIV community is for making sure that people are linked to care and receive the service and support that they need to live well, healthy, long lives with HIV. So I think that's another key point that's really important with the Global Fund and your new strategy, is about making sure the community is at the centre of care provision. And that's something that, as Vive Healthcare, we commit to. We work closely with the Global Fund, with the Her Voice Fund, which is about enabling adolescent girls and young women to make sure that they are mobilised and fight for their rights. And they're very powerful, and they'll be more powerful than any company will ever be. So we're proud to make sure that we support and enable the communities in that way as well.
Helen, thank you. And just, Helen mentioned a contribution to the Global Fund's Emergency Fund. I think it's a bit of it's a sort of sad testimony to the state of the world today, is that our emergency fund keeps running out of money. And we keep having to retop it. We already have about, in total, around 200 million helping sustain HIV and TB services in Ukraine. But it's not just about Ukraine. We actually had to release money for Mozambique earlier this year because of the damaging impact of the cyclones. And actually yesterday I approved more money for Pakistan because we will absolutely unambiguously see a surge of malaria as a result of the extraordinary flooding across the country. And I know we're going to have to do even more than that. Three fantastic partners: Helen, Rowie, Alison, and doors haven't closed. Global Fund replenishment is tomorrow. It's a fantastic deal. You get money, extra match from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You also get money from USG. Deal not to be missed. Fantastic return in terms of human lives and broader socio-economic development. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alison and Rowie.
Thank you.
Alison.